Hey, everybody, and welcome to another deep dive. I've always kind of wondered, why are things where they are? You know what I mean? Like, why is that city over there and not over there?
Yeah,
And why are all the farms out in this area?
right.
Well, today we are going to try to figure that out. We're going to unpack some of those theories
hmm
behind why things are located where they are.
Okay.
And to help us do that, we're going to be looking at the work of Johann, Heinrich von Thünen,
Okay.
Alfred Weber,
All right.
and Walter Christaller.
Big thinkers.
Yeah, big thinkers in urban and economic geography.
Yeah.
And, their theories might sound a little dry at first, but I promise there are some real aha moments once you start to think about it.
I agree.
So let's just jump right in.
Okay.
Let's go all the way back to 1826 with von Thünen.
Okay.
He imagined this isolated state. It was a central city, surrounded by farmland, and he asked, if I was a farmer back then, how would I decide what to grow? What factors would make me decide I'm going to grow this here, but I'm going to grow this over there?
Yeah.
And his answer was this model of agricultural land use that's actually still pretty relevant today, even though it's from 1826.
Wow.
Imagine concentric rings of farming activity around a city,
Okay.
almost like a bullseye.
Okay.
So in that innermost ring, the closest to the city, you would find dairy farms
Mm-hmm.
and market gardens that have a lot of perishable goods,
Yeah.
like fresh milk, delicate veggies, things that have to get to the people in the city very quickly.
Right.
Then a little further out, you get to that second ring,
Okay.
and that's where all the timber is being harvested.
Okay.
Now, this was back before coal was a big deal, so firewood was very important.
Yeah.
But hauling timber is really hard.
Yes.
It's heavy, it's expensive,
Yeah.
and so you want that to be as close to the city as possible
Yeah.
to minimize those transportation costs.
Makes sense.
And then we go out to the third ring,
Okay.
and you find vast fields of grain because grain has a longer shelf life.
Yeah.
It's easier to transport.
Right.
So farmers can be further from the city and still make a profit.
Yeah.
And then finally, way out in that outermost ring,
Okay.
we reach the ranchers.
Okay.
Now, cattle, sheep, they're all self-transporting.
Oh.
They can wash themselves to the city, so the ranchers can really be out there far away from the city center and do their thing
Right.
because they don't have to worry so much about the transportation costs cutting into their profits.
So what you're saying is, even back then they were thinking about logistics and, the bottom line.
Yes.
That's really interesting.
And what's fascinating is that von Thünen's model, while it is a simplification, it really captures this fundamental economic concept of economic rent.
Okay.
And that is the potential profit a farmer can make from a piece of land,
Okay.
considering its location and the costs associated with that location.
So, even if you've got great land,
Yes.
but it's way out in the boonies,
Yes.
it might not be worth as much
Yeah.
because you can't get your stuff to market.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you see, even in our modern world, we have highways, we have refrigerated trucks, all this amazing transportation.
Right.
But that tension between land cost and transportation cost hasn't gone away.
That's true.
It's still a balancing act that farmers have to deal with.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
It is. And it makes you think, you're browsing that farmer's market on a Sunday morning,
Yeah.
and you're seeing von Thünen's theory in action.
It's all connected.
It really is.
Wow.
But what about when we're not talking about fields and farms?
Yeah.
What about factories?
Right?
That's where our next location guru, Alfred Weber, comes in.
Okay.
The Weber, he was fascinated by, what makes a business decide we're going to put our factory here,
Yeah.
particularly for manufacturers.
Right.
Why here? Why not someplace else?
Yeah. It's all about maximizing those profits.
Exactly. And to do that, you have to think about minimizing those costs.
Right.
And that's where location becomes really key.
It's huge.
So Weber, he boiled it down to three main factors:
Okay.
transportation costs,
Yeah.
labor costs,
Okay.
and something called agglomeration.
All right, let's break those down.
Yes.
So let's say you're a business owner and you're trying to decide, where am I going to build this new factory?
Okay.
First thing you're probably going to look at is transportation costs.
Makes sense. Yeah.
How much is it going to cost to get your raw materials to the factory
Yeah.
and then to get your finished goods out to the customers?
Right. And that could really vary depending on where you are.
Absolutely. And the weight of the stuff you're moving matters too, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Heavy stuff is more expensive to move.
Right. So maybe being closer to where your customers are
Yeah.
is more important than being close to your raw materials, or vice versa.
Exactly. Or maybe you're willing to pay more for rent on a factory that's closer to your stuff so you don't have to move it as far.
Yeah, those transportation costs can really add up.
For sure.
But then you've also got those labor costs to consider.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What if the workers in one area are more expensive,
Right.
but maybe they're also more skilled, and so you're willing to pay a little more to be in that area?
It's all a trade-off.
Yeah.
Maybe those skilled workers mean you can produce your product faster,
Right.
higher quality,
Right.
and that makes up for the extra cost.
Yeah, so it's like a big game of location chess. You got to think about all the angles.
It really is, and that's where agglomeration comes in.
Okay, agglomeration.
I know it sounds kind of intimidating, but it's really not that complicated.
Okay.
Basically, businesses often benefit from being near other businesses,
Oh.
even if they're not direct competitors.
So, like, I'm thinking about that cluster of auto shops.
Right.
They're all competing for business.
Yeah.
But it's got to be useful for them to be all in the same area.
Exactly. Think about it. Shared resources,
It's okay.
larger pool of potential employees.
Right.
And even just like the buzz of being in a busy industrial center, it can all be beneficial.
So when we see these big industrial clusters like Silicon Valley,
Right.
Detroit back in the day for cars,
Yeah, those are great examples.
Weber's model helps explain why that happens.
Exactly. And what's cool is that Weber didn't just give us a theory.
Okay.
He actually gave us a way to visualize these decisions. He used what he called locational triangles
Okay.
to show how businesses weigh the costs and benefits of different locations.
Okay.
Imagine a triangle.
Okay.
And each point represents a different factor, like proximity to your resources,
Yeah.
labor costs, transportation costs,
Right.
and that sweet spot for your factory's location.
Yeah.
Right in the middle where those costs are minimized.
So you're looking for that perfect spot in the triangle.
Exactly.
I love
But
that.
a balancing act.
It is. Those locational triangles really help me understand how a business would make those decisions.
Yeah, it's a helpful way to think about it.
But what if we zoom out even further?
Okay.
What about the cities and towns themselves?
Yeah.
That's where Walter Christaller and his central place theory comes in.
That's right, Christaller. He was really intrigued by patterns.
Okay.
He wanted to understand why cities and towns are spaced out the way they are.
Yeah.
Why some are these big, bustling hubs,
Right.
and others are really small.
Yeah.
What's the reason for that?
It's like he was looking at a map and trying to decode it.
Exactly.
So what did he find?
Well, he came up with this thing called central place theory back in the 1930s.
Okay.
And he said that settlements arrange themselves in a hierarchy.
Okay.
And each one serves a specific function
Right.
within this larger network of settlements.
So like a big city is going to have different things than a small town.
Exactly.
Okay.
Think about it. You wouldn't expect to find a specialized heart hospital
Right.
or a rare bookstore
Right.
out in a tiny little rural town.
No.
Those businesses need a large population to
Yeah.
survive, so they cluster in those bigger central places.
But those smaller towns still have a purpose.
Oh, absolutely.
They're not just empty.
No, think about your local village or your small town.
Yeah.
It's probably got a grocery store,
Yeah.
a post office,
Yeah.
a gas station.
Right. All the essentials.
Exactly. They're taking care of those everyday needs of the community.
Right. And I'm thinking about, like, how far am I willing to drive for certain things?
Yeah.
I'm not driving an hour for a loaf of bread,
Right, exactly.
but I might to see a specific doctor.
Exactly. And Christaller called that the range of a good or service.
Okay.
How far people are willing to travel to get it.
Okay.
But he also recognized that businesses need a certain number of customers to survive.
Right. They can't just have one customer a week.
Exactly. And he called that the threshold,
Okay.
that minimum number of people to keep the business going.
So those specialized businesses in a big city, they've got a higher threshold,
They do.
but people are willing to come from farther away.
Exactly.
So it all balances out.
And when you factor in those ranges and those thresholds, Christaller's model, it actually predicts this pattern of hexagonal market area.
Hexagons.
Hexagons, yeah.
Okay.
Because if you think about circles,
Okay.
they leave gaps.
Right.
And if you think about squares, they overlap.
Right.
Hexagons are like the perfect compromise.
Okay. So hexagons, that's efficient urban planning.
That's right.
So does this actually play out in real life?
It's actually surprisingly accurate.
Really?
Even almost 100 years later.
Wow.
Think about it. Shopping malls,
Yeah.
hospitals,
Right.
even specialized stores.
Okay.
They often follow a pattern that you could see in Christaller's model.
Wow, that's so interesting.
They cluster in the bigger cities, right?
Right.
And they space themselves out based on the people they're trying to serve.
But now it's the 21st century.
That's right.
We've got online shopping,
Yeah,
people working from home.
that's true.
Does that mess up this whole model?
Well, that is the big question, isn't
It
it?
is a big question.
Some people think we're moving towards a more decentralized world
Okay.
where people can work from anywhere.
Right. They don't have to go to that big city center,
Exactly.
like the 15-minute city idea,
Yeah, exactly.
where
yeah.
you can walk to get everything you need.
That's right.
But is that really going to happen?
That's what we have to see.
Right, because those big cities
Yeah.
still have a certain pull.
They do.
People still want to go to them.
It's an interesting thing to think about, right?
It really is. So we've gone from fields of wheat
Right?
to factories
That's right.
to cities and towns, and we've seen how location
Yeah.
really is so important.
A big deal.
It determines so much.
Yeah.
And it was really fascinating to take a look at these theories.
It really makes you think.
It does, and I hope our listeners out there will start to look around
Yeah.
and maybe notice things in their own communities.
Right. Are the businesses where you expect them to be?
Yeah, why is that? Why is that coffee shop there?
Why is that grocery store all the way over there?
Why is that factory out in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
It really is. Well, thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
This was a fun one.
It was. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing and never stop questioning the world around you.